David Jensen here to talk about this week's Roundtable, which I'll be chairing in the absence of Richard Skinner. And to talk about this week's releases will be Simon Bates, no problem there. Also to talk, Martin Rushent, the famous record producer, and Mark Hollis from the band. So join Mark Hollis, Simon Bates, Martin Rushent, and yours truly this Friday at 5:45. Sitting in for Richard Skinner this evening. Simon has only just come in. Simon Bates is one of our guests and says, "Are you Richard Skinner? Where's Richard Skinner?" Now
late.
You know.
He's late, that's what he is.
So I'm taking care of business. Well, hello, Simon. Welcome to the Roundtable.
Hi.
And to famous record producer Martin Rushent, welcome back.
Good afternoon. How are you, all right?
I am doing just fine, thank you.
Good.
First time in this chair for a long time. And Mark Hollis from Talk.
Hello.
Welcome. Let's get underway with our first record. Okay, Mark Hollis of Talk.
Yeah, I would think it would definitely be a hit. I like the idea of actually pulling things out in terms of a kind of, dub mix as regards a single. I can't see that it could not be a hit.
Quickly around the table, what are you listening to now and liking at the moment, Mark?
Well, my two favourite records in the chart at the minute, I would think, would be Michael Jackson and Big Country. Both Michael Jackson just purely from that dance aspect, Big Country from the power side of things.
Yeah, it is powerful. Simon?
I have a theory about Big Country.
Okay. Mark Hollis?
I feel it's all a bit too jolly, a bit too bouncy. I think in terms of like the production is sort of well over the top.
Yeah.
It's sort of coming on so strong, It doesn't actually ever give you any room to sort of pause for thought on it.
Right.
From a lyrical aspect, I'd just dismiss it instantly.
Right on.
Right, okay. A man who writes his own music. Martin Rushent, who produces other people. Her new album, Laura Branigan 2, it's called Solitaire. Mark Hollis?
Well, this is the sort of record that I know my little brother would like, because he's into that sort of thing that I would call Europop. It's certainly one that I don't like. And I just think, it would, good luck to her if the Germans like it, but as far as I'm concerned, I would be quite happy if it stayed in Germany, That's about all I can really say.
All right, then. Martin?
Do you have any...
Yeah, the closest thing to me it sounded like was a sort of Americanised form of Roxy music. I did think it was great. I thought it built extremely well through the first verse, and then once it arrived at where it was getting to, it sustained it really well.
Right, okay. Well,
Who is
Mark
it?
Hollis.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, neither of those two tracks particularly appealed to me. I think he's done, much better tracks than these. It's the same with this new single that he's got out at the moment. I do really like that single, but at the same time, I do think he's done stuff in the past of more worth. At the same time, he is definitely somebody that I really do admire. I respect, the fact that he's been in the music business as long as he has, and he's sort of still pushing to do more.
All right. And he looks still youthful, too.
He still looks great, and I mean, I really liked his video for the new single. I thought it was great. I thought the idea of using Aborigines was a superb idea.
Using being the operative word.
Yeah, it was actually the idea we were going to use on our next single, but, I mean, there you go. You win some, you lose some.
No, they wouldn't fly you out to Australia, right? No problem.
All right, Martin Rushent. Before I ask you about the record itself, who did you think it was? Mark Hollis?
I don't really know. I mean, I thought, there were parts of the vocal that was maybe reminiscent of Michael Jackson, but I honestly can't believe it is Michael Jackson. Not in terms of the production or, the sort of overall movement of it.
Okay. After...
I thought it was okay. I mean, it didn't appeal to me that much.
Okay. And what about you, Martin? All right. Who you worked with?
Plug.
Later, yeah. Simon?
I think it's happened before. I think Martin's absolutely right, and what Mark is going to say is going to bear us all up, I think. But I think it's a...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think, a couple of years ago, maybe it would have been good, but the trend, I think, is getting towards more powerful records, and I think, less of an emphasis on synthesizers in general.
Okay, we're going to take a break.
No, I don't like it.
Mark Hollis?
The thing about the sort of warped synth sounds at the beginning, I actually quite like that. There's something about the verse that it really reminds me of, and I spent most of the time just sort of trying to think what it was. From like the lyrical side of it really doesn't do anything for me, but I'm sure it's gonna do what it's gonna do.
Right. The girls' voices are stronger, I think, which is good. And Mark, it's interesting.
I would totally agree with that. I think it's an actual fact of this program that the majority of records that you actually listen to, you're going to take, like the number of times I've listened to the programme, and sort of like 90% of the time is putting down records, which isn't really a very healthy approach in terms of sort of encouraging people to buy music. But I just think it's a fact of this programme, and at the end of the day, it is basically, only our opinions.
Okay.
Maybe.
And also instant opinions, which is the other problem.
Yes, that's right, making your mind up instantaneously. Here's a record I think we've all heard at least once before, Spandau Ballet's latest. The title track from the album is now a 45, True. Spandau Ballet, title track from True, the album. Jolly and Swain produced it. And I'll go right to Mark Hollis from Talk Talk and ask you what you thought of it.
Well, in terms of the production, I thought it was very carefully produced. It actually felt to me as though it lasted about 15 minutes. The thing that always surprises me in terms of sort of like journalism and things like that is there can be a lot of credibility attached to bands, such as Spandau, where, a product like this to me is ultimately very close to being middle of the road. I mean, all I can say is it was like well produced for the type of thing it is. It really isn't the sort of record I would listen to, and I did find it extremely bland.
Interesting. I said the other night it's a sort of record that will make a crossover, because very few records do that, and I think they're successful when they can be played by Terry Wogan on Radio 2 and by nighttime radio, Simon. Everybody can play the record. I don't want to preempt what you're going to say, Martin, so you go ahead, Martin Russian.
At the threat of being emasculated by the lady from the record company that I had lunch with today, who said if it's on, don't knock it. I'm going to have to knock it, I think. I mean, I really like... it's not the Spandau Ballet that excited me down the Blitz several years ago. And I really like them as people. They're ever such nice guys and everything, but I really don't like this. I mean, it is MOR. I mean, it's just... And yeah, it could well be a big hit because it'll cross over and you'll be able to play it on the breakfast show and you'll be able to play it late night and all wonderful, but it's still not a very good piece of music, really.
Interesting you should say that. I mean, I think Gary Kemp is very, very proud of this work. Thinks it's one of the best things, if not the best thing he's done. And I think it's not only going to be number one here, but in America. Simon, what do you think?
Well, I've got to say, I mean, you mentioned Terry Wogan. He comes into my studio occasionally and drinks me coffee. Paul Walters programs the music for him, because, of course, on Radio 2 they don't listen to records. Walters actually programmed that this morning, and Terry came in and said, "Isn't that Commodore's record great?" And you're absolutely right. It's a number one record, both sides of the Atlantic. It's an extraordinary record, and I think in the summer months you will just hear nothing but it. I think it's going to be a phenomenal success. And I like it as well.
Yeah, I do too. It's interesting that Mark and Martin clearly don't like it very much. I think when I hear it, I think, it's interesting you suggested a Mark Hollis.
Yeah, I would agree as well. I mean, the thing I actually liked about it was its sparseness, and I like the idea of actually using marimbas as a featured instrument.
Yeah. Do you like her voice? I think her voice is terrific too.
I think she's good. Yeah, I think she's good.
Great, okay. Everybody a Creatures fan. That was Time Bandits. Simon.
Okay, but a bit long.
All right. Mark Hollis, who was listening intently.
Yeah, not all that keen, really. I mean, the main thing I was thinking about was that thing we were saying earlier about it being a debut effort and not to discourage people. But, I mean, I would sort of listen to that about as much as I would listen to a Laura Branigan record.
Curious. Martin.
Very well produced. The guitar sounds not as cutting as it should be.
Yeah, I don't think the production helped it.
No, I don't. So I'd want to listen to that record.
To do it, they thought it might be a good idea second time round. Johannesburg. Mark Hollis, what did you think?
I didn't like it. Not at all. I would love to end this show with a positive comment.
Leave him laughing.
But that is it. I didn't like it.
Martin Russian.
No, I didn't really like it.
There must be something wrong there. Very quickly, what are Talk up to?
We're just going to go in next week and start recording our next album. And, the follow-up single, seeing as the last one's bombing rapidly up the charts.
I know. Shane and Martin?
A new entry for Talk. Life is what you make it.
Number 23.